My name is Sophia Kolayakova-Flanders, and today I will be discussing the generational division within popular music and its impact on the human experience. Here is an agenda briefly outlining everything I will be covering in my presentation today. Firstly, I would like to begin by discussing the generational divide and how music is interpreted. We live in a world where music is more accessible than ever, being literally at our fingertips with technology. Yet, we find ourselves at odds with each other. According to a study of the Billboard Hot 100 done by Askin and Mousecap, quote, listeners' assessments of popular music are shaped by the qualities of the songs themselves, suggesting that consumers are discerning. However, this discernment is clouded by generational biases from both older and younger generations. The research question I focused my presentation around was how do lyrical themes and musical styles in popular music reflect and shape societal attitudes towards the human experience across multiple different generations. In doing my research, I was able to develop two critical connections to the stimulus package. The first was false nostalgia. Norberg argues that nostalgia is a coping mechanism for change, leading to an over-romanticization of the past, and this ultimately distorts how generations perceive the human experience, which can also be reflected in how they perceive popular music from different eras of time. The second connection I was able to develop was to the Maori oral narratives and Pakeha written texts, written by Judith Binney, which articulates that historical retelling, whether it's oral or written, is inherently subjective, and this reflects in the storyteller's biases, which can also be seen in the music consumers' biases and how their interpretations of popular music from different time periods and their socio-political messages are impacted. The argument I was able to develop from my research was that there is a mutual lack of generational appreciation of popular music, both from younger and older generations, rooted in differing language and theme interpretations, which obscures popular music's commentary on critical issues regarding the human experience and creates a large generational divide. For starters, older generations often dismiss contemporary music for its use of slang words and vulgar language they do not understand, and they often find its messages to be overly shallow. According to a study done on popular music, Christensen et al. Found that from the years 1960 to 2000, the sexual themes in popular music more than doubled. On the other hand, younger generations have trouble appreciating the music of older generations as they find that it has too complex and outdated language, and they also don't fully understand the socio-political context of that time, which inhibits their ability to understand the popular music's messages. This can be illustrated in Barnum et al.'s research in American pop music, which states that lyric complexity has in fact decreased over time. And while older generations may argue that this is younger generations being shallow or less in depth, this actually illustrates the preference of younger generations to express themselves more directly rather than using nuanced language. My solution entails the development of the Borough Intergenerational Artistic Exchange. This would entail allocating government funds to promote artistic collaboration between artists of different mediums, including music, from different generations, to prove that artists can come together and work to create something stronger. This would entail funding collaborations, organizing workshops and educational programs, and creating digital platforms that would allow for diplomatic dialogue between generations to understand the messages of music and allow for people to have a more open-minded perspective on musical interpretation. For example, this would entail older generations learning about the slang terms and vulgar themes of contemporary music to understand its true meaning and rather inhibit the negative aspects, and for younger generations to take a deeper dive into the socio-political context of the eras in which older generations' popular songs were released. Ultimately, the goal is to create a positive space where different generations can learn from each other, appreciate each other's music, and bridge the gap. However, there are a few critical limitations to acknowledge with this solution. Firstly, the argument that government funding is wasteful and could be allocated to other more important issues, and the bureaucratic process would stifle creativity among artists. However, through pilot programs and data collection, as well as citizen oversight boards, the borough would focus on prioritizing projects with clear, measurable outcomes to ensure that its goals would actually materialize. Secondly, the bureaucratic process and forced collaboration could compromise artistic integrity. However, all artist participants would have complete voluntary participation and creative control of their projects, and the borough would solely focus on providing the finances and the resources necessary for these projects to come to life. Lastly, there may be some generational resistance for both older and younger generations to actually participate in these projects and ensure that they would come to life. However, there would, like I mentioned before, there would be a citizen board with representatives from younger and older generations to ensure that everyone's voices are being heard and their matters are being taken into account. And ultimately, this would allow for the borough to achieve its goal of highlighting positives of both the older and younger generation's music, as well as showing how they're similar and complement each other, showing that there's value in all generations. In conclusion, music has proved to be a significant barrier to intergenerational understanding, fostering a generational gap in communication and creating harmful stereotypes. However, through diplomatic collaboration, dialogue, and educational programs, we can move beyond surface level judgments so that music can serve its core purpose as a creative outlet for self-expression and serve as a bridge and not a barrier for humanity. And here are my works cited.
Thank you. You conclude your presentation by talking about a problem between generations. Can you clarify the real problem and the consequences of the problem?
Yes, so the problem is rooted in two main issues. Number one, the language used, specifically the wording, and how sometimes people let that kind of take away from the messages themselves. And the other problem is the themes used. Once again, darker themes such as the sexual ones I talked about earlier distract people from the true meanings of the songs. And this ultimately fosters the idea that generations can't fully understand and communicate with each other's important messages. Music, for centuries, has always served as an important creative outlet for people to express their emotions and their feelings. Especially popular music often reflects feelings regarding important socio-political issues. And therefore, if people aren't able to fully understand those issues and get distracted by other minimal factors such as the language used or the themes talked about, it ultimately creates a significant barrier between generations.
Thank you. If you had more time, what additional research would you conduct related to this issue?
I would like to conduct further research regarding like surveys or what people from both older and younger generations actually think of each other's music. I did primarily studies, however, it would have been nice to see what people's feedback are. How many people from younger generations are open to the music of older ones and vice versa. That would also allow me to better assess how successful my solution could be.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please get your slides up.